Okay, so thank you for being here. My name is Jonathan. I've been helping dozens, if not hundreds, of students with the exam preparations online for at least 6 years, and offline, I would say at least 10 years. I have taken the test myself. I took that first in 2017. That was, I got a score of 117. There was a 28 on reading, 29 on listening, 30 on speaking, 30 on writing. And at the time, a lot of my students were heavily, much more interested in just speaking and writing feedback. So I felt that I neglected a little bit the reading and listening, as people preferred to mostly do that on an independent basis. Then after the 28 and the 29 and the reading and listening, I decided to do much more for the reading and listening strategies and go through the preparations a lot more thoroughly. So a year later, when I took that in March 2018, I managed to get a 120, so a 30 in every section. I did end the session, the 4-hour session. I had like 4 readings and all that, but I did end it with like a migraine, and I was just completely kaput for the rest of the day. But when I got the score results, it was worth it to see like, okay, these strategies, these techniques are not only helping students, but these are working on the test for myself. So since then, I continue to help lots and lots of students, still primarily a lot of speaking and writing feedback. And more and more people have contacted me when it is related to licensing. So for example, pharmacists, physical therapists, registered nurses, dentists. So a lot of medical related professions, and some of those board requirements are usually requiring the 26. And as I have worked online, that's allowed me to work with people on at least 5 continents. So a lot of people living in the United States, especially for those board requirements, and students in South America, Europe, some countries in Africa, North Africa, Middle East, Asia. So I am exposed to many different accents. Myself, I am a polyglot. I speak Spanish, French, German, Italian, Russian, and I've dabbled in at least a dozen languages. I love learning languages. I love teaching. I've been teaching now for, I want to say, over 22, 23 years. And so enough about me. I'd love to hear a little more about your background in the chat, to just know a little more your speaking experience there. Feel free to leave some comments there in the chat box. But in the Facebook group, where there were lots of comments and messages, I saw a lot of fluctuations in scores below 26, a little bit below 20, and then like 22, 23, 24. They might just seem like random numbers, but as we'll go through here, we'll kind of dissect a little bit what's going in to how you're being evaluated, how to work on some of those things, and go through just a little bit of these four types of questions: the independent question, number 1, and then the number 2, the campus related speaking question, and then the last 2, which are lectures with some information on the screen, and then a short lecture from a professor, and then combining that information, and then the last speaking question with a little bit longer audio lecture, and then taking notes and summarizing that information. So If you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat box. So I will mute here as you're coming in, and yeah, just to save that. So let me get here. Okay, so I'll make this full screen here. So just let me know in the chat if you can see this full screen, if that's working. Just a little thumbs up or a like, yes, I can see that, and I will go through here. Okay. That looks like yes. Okay. So yeah, thank you for mentioning it. Okay. So just a little bit here. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and you can also contact me by email afterwards. If you have questions about this, I'll put my email there in the chat box. And as you're coming in, if you can please mute yourselves. So one of the first things here, kind of, for those of you getting familiar with how the speaking section is organized, several of you have already taken this, so you know what to expect there. Okay, so the first one, we have a question on the screen, and then we hear the narrator say that same thing. In theory, as soon as the narrator finishes, we have 15 seconds. If you start preparing as the narrator is speaking, that could give you a few extra seconds. You will have overall 45 seconds for that first answer. That's the shortest one. The other three answers, other three responses for questions 2, 3, and 4 have 60 seconds. This is at the bottom here, one way that you could organize yourself, like a short introduction. Take a few key words from the prompt. You don't have to repeat everything in the prompt, but just take a few keywords. Then get into your first reason. What I generally tell people is go general, specific, and then for example. So general, if it's a preference question, for example, if you prefer to watch a movie at home or to watch a movie in a movie theater, I could just get straight to the point. So like, okay, I prefer to watch movies at home. And as a general statement, I could say something that it's more comfortable, more convenient at home. That's just a general idea. I could get a little specific, clarify what I mean by comfortable, convenient. Comfortable, it's my own, I can sit on my own couch. I like that. I could make a short comparison here about at the movie theater that, well, sometimes those chairs are not clean because there's so many people who sit there, or they're not as comfortable as at home. Convenient, I can pause the movie. If I need to go to the bathroom, I can get up, I can pause it. Whereas if I do that in the movie theater, I have to get up, leave. I will probably miss something important in the movie if there's an interruption. So I could go from general, slightly specific, and then, like, for example, last week I watched a movie at home, and it was I had a good time. I enjoyed myself after a long day at work. So I could just have a few details there and then go into a second reason. And then now with, I could still reference the pandemic and say many movie theaters closed. It's more difficult to find the movie I want to see and at the right time. So I can mention a few things like that. You don't have to have 2 reasons. A lot of things you'll find on YouTube and social media and websites and blogs, they'll usually refer to 2 reasons, but you could go into 1 reason and just give more detail to it. It doesn't have to be 2, but it turns out that having 2 usually helps a little bit more for your time management. Brainstorming is usually something that students tell me that they struggle with a little bit, of how do I come up with useful reasons or things that are appropriate. You're not giving a TED Talk, so they don't have to be brilliant reasons. They don't have to be like your doctoral dissertation kind of reasons, just something simple, something that is directly related to that idea. I do tell people, like, look for the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, if that helps you find something that's convincing. If you're in this gray area with something that's a bit ambiguous, that could apply to both sides. If you feel like, okay, movies at the movie theater, movies at home, and you just say something like, I like watching movies, that doesn't actually answer the question of the location. So try to find something of like, what's the best case scenario of watching a movie in the movie theater? And okay, well, if I saw some action movie that has great sound and a lot of visual effects, well, I have a small TV at home and I have no speakers, so that's going to negatively affect my experience at home. But at a movie theater, that's going to be much more interesting or exciting. So that could be the worst case, best case, based on what kind of a movie I want to see. Okay. The integrated, those ones, integrated 2, 3, 4, the idea is that you're combining information that you're either reading and listening. So the question number 2, there's a campus announcement, a proposal, a policy change. There's usually 2 reasons, 2 benefits. Why are they going to make that change, or what motivated them to make that change? So those are usually in that text that you will see on the screen. Then immediately afterwards, that text will disappear forever. Then you'll listen to a conversation with a man and a woman. One of them seems to have a stronger opinion. The other one just seems to keep the conversation kind of going of, yeah, oh, really? I didn't know that. And the other one seems to react to that text and have their opinion on that. Question number 2, it kind of feels like you're listening to somebody give a question number 1 answer, where they're reacting to what's going to happen and then giving their 2 reasons why they support that or they don't, or they're against it, or they agree or they disagree with it. I do tell people in their introduction, briefly summarize what is the announcement. Like, the university plans to do X, Y, in order to, so that, so working on some expressions where you get the objective or the goal, the purpose of an action. And then, so that would be like maximum 50 seconds about what's in the text or the announcement. And then spend about 45 seconds talking about what the man and the woman said. So, like, try not to be clever. I know, just get straight to the point. That the man in the conversation disagrees. The woman in the conversation agrees with the announcement. Make sure that statement is clear, because we're listening to make sure that you have that. And then go into those reasons. What are some of those details? Not all the non-essential details, but keeping just the essentials. And then finally wrapping up, like, so that's why the man in the conversation agrees with the plan. A lot of people do tend to do well on the second question. It does have a little more of a predictable template that you can use, at least for your bullet points or what to expect in terms of organization. Where a lot more people end up struggling is like question number 3, question number 4. Sometimes those templates don't always work. But overall, for question number 3, you'll have a concept. It might be a brand new concept, something you've never seen. And okay. And oh, there's a comment here. Let me see here. So let me get this question regarding question number 2. Yeah, before I move on to question number 3. So regarding question number 2, the conversation agrees with the first part of reading and disagrees with the second point. Do we state that the man or the woman agrees, then start to state the details and mention that he or she disagrees with the second point? Or we say the man or the woman agrees with the first point and disagrees with the second point and explain. Okay, yeah, some of these templates that you'll see will not include partial agreement, partial disagreement, where, for example, the student, I'm trying to think of something here, the student understands that the university wants to cut costs, but let's say firing all the professors and saving money on their salaries is not the best way to approach that. So like, okay, the university needs to cut costs, but does not agree on the implementation or how to go about saving money. So do look for some verbs that could show this partial agreement. So avoid something like completely agrees, or sure, like the woman understands. So that you could show some understanding there. The woman, yeah, understands that the university wants to cut costs, but she doesn't think it's a good idea to fire all the teachers because. So you could show both parts there. That also reflects on your understanding of those notes, and that you had you caught that there is this little nuance between not a full agreement or full disagreement. Try to show that there isn't conflict, or I mean, not personal conflict, but just that, yeah, there's a reason behind this, but the way they're going to do it is not going to work. Yeah, I think I would like to hear like an example if you can. If you get a chance later, you can send me a message, and if you've come across an example like that on the test recently, feel free to share with me what your response would have been. Okay. But yeah, definitely go show as much of that information that you understood what was going on in the conversation, that there was not a complete agreement, but kind of mixed. Okay. On this question number 3, you will have a concept on the screen. It's okay if it's a brand new concept that you've never seen before. They're not testing you on your background before you get to the test. They are testing you on your ability to process new information and summarize it and sound confident that whether you understand what this actually means or not is not really the point. It's whether you can just go about summarizing that information when you don't know what you're talking about. If you can kind of bluff or fake some kind of confidence, whereas a lot of people, they'll see like, I don't know what that is. I'm not a botanist. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a astronomer or something like that. So that isn't the point. Me neither. I'm not a botanist. I'm not a biologist. I get exposed to all of these little concepts that come up on the exam. But just this ability to kind of calmly take information. What's the concept? What are some of the characteristics? What does this apply to? What field of knowledge does this apply to? And then the professor in the example is going to either give something general and specific. There could be 2 interpretations of that concept. There could be a sense of like vice versa. I've seen a couple of questions like that. There could be a process that's being explained in an anecdote. Maybe the professor has a story from their own personal life that demonstrates that concept. And so you need to pick some of those main essential details as you go into go into your 60-second wrap up. Now, keep in mind that because you have the text on the screen for 50 seconds and it disappears, and the professor is speaking for like 60 seconds, 90 seconds, you have at your disposal over 2 minutes of material, but you only get 60 seconds to summarize that. So you're not meant to be the professor. You're not meant to go through the exact same pacing and slow delivery that the professor had in the audio file. You're meant to be highlighting the key ideas. That, for example, you have a friend who was absent in class and they need to take a pop quiz on this concept tomorrow, but they were absent, but they're relying on you. And let's say they just saw you briefly in the elevator for a minute, or they saw you in between classes for a minute, and they ask you like, hey, what did you cover? What did you guys talk about in class? Oh, well, we saw this concept, and there's 1 or 2 things you need to know about that. And the professor's example was this, this, this. So that kind of information, being conscious that somebody listening to you needs this information, they need to know what you're referring to. That kind of gives your response a little bit of more of a purpose, that you want to be clear, you want to be understandable. And if you're just looking at your notes and your sentences don't really make sense, if they're just random keywords, that's not going to help so much in terms of the delivery to make sure that like somebody listening to you is able to follow along. That gets a little bit harder on the 4th one, where now the audio is longer because there's no text for you to read on the screen. So this professor could be talking for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And obviously you still have 60 seconds to, again, you're not meant to be the professor. You need to just highlight these key ideas that go into those 60 seconds. So you could introduce this idea. There might be a first example. There could be a research experiment, like a first part of the research experiment, a second part. So these are the dynamics of what we're looking at, just the test by itself, before you actually get into specific questions. Where I want to take you a little bit further here is understanding what is affecting your performance. So please continue to put any questions you have so far in the chat box. I may be presenting information that you're already familiar with for the test if you've obviously taken the test a couple times, but hopefully hearing this from a different perspective helps a little bit. Having some of those ideas sink in case, I mean, there's many different ways to explain that you've probably come across from different teachers, but this is what I usually explain to students so far. So the next thing is these rubrics, which you've probably seen already online, or you've seen in the official guide, or sometimes you've seen them part of score reports. I don't think the score reports are as detailed now as they used to be. But this is what a human evaluator, a human examiner is looking at. And a human examiner is only allowed to select whole numbers. So if all your characteristics of your response show a 3, then they select a 3. If all of it shows a 4, then they'll give you that 4. The computer, the speech rater software, it can do partial numbers. So that's where we're starting to see these numbers that are 24, 25, 27, 29. Like it used to be, there would be like 23, 24, 26, 28, 30. And we are starting to see a lot more responses that are kind of in between those numbers. So the 3 main categories here topic development, language use, delivery. Topic development means, are you organized? Are your ideas making sense? Are they coherent? Are they appropriate for this question? Or are you saying something that doesn't make sense? Or are you including non-essential things that shouldn't be there? Is the logic of how you're developing your answer, does that make sense? Does that flow? Transition words can help, things like first, next. However, it's like creating some contrast phrases. And usually topic development is the first place I start with students. I even tell people, write down what you want to say. That allows them to not have as much stress with the time management, or if they're having a hard time brainstorming ideas, kind of calmly go through about 120, 150 words, maybe for the 120 words for the first answer, for the 45-second answer, maybe about 150 words, 140, 50 words for the questions 2, 3, 4. So a short paragraph, maybe at 8 or 9 sentences. Just look at that, and what that will do is give you a sense of how much content is appropriate. So kind of like a Goldilocks in the 3 Bears, where this was not enough, this was too much, this is just right. So you can kind of give yourself that model response before you deal with the timer and the anxiety with the speaking under pressure. But if you can give yourself an idea, how many sentences do I need? How do I organize myself? You can start with the topic development. And then language use, that's getting into your grammar. Do you have mostly correct sentences? Do you have a little bit of variety in your vocabulary? I usually tell people to get variety in vocabulary through word families. So for example, inform, informative, information, those are 3 different parts of speech. So a verb, an adjective, a noun, perhaps an adverb. So if you can create some variety with your vocabulary through word forms, that can help. Okay. And having a little bit of variety in your sentence structures. So sentence variety is simple sentences like subject, verb, object. Compound sentences, you're usually adding and or but. So it rained, but I went to the park. Or it rained and I got wet. That could be compound. Complex, you're adding usually a conjunction, which can then create a dependent clause and a independent clause. So for example, if I win the lottery, that's a dependent clause. The word if makes that first part of the sentence incomplete. So if I win the lottery, then we need the second half of the sentence, like I will buy a house or something. Or when I got home, I watched TV. So the when I got home would create a dependent clause. And then compound complex is where you're combining this kind of complex sentence with compound like the and or but. So when I got home, I watched TV, but I fell asleep. So that could be having that combination there. That's a short example. If you can get a variety in there, like some compound, some complex, not all simple sentences, and making sure that as you are going through the sentences and speaking, you're not getting stuck like in the middle of the sentence and losing your focus. So that's a little bit on your language use. You can do a little bit of that in writing, preparing yourself to double check your frequent mistakes. I hear a lot of people miss articles. Some of their tenses are not consistent. They start an anecdote in the past and then switch to the present. And then some of the endings of those words are missing an S sound for like he, she, or they're missing a D sound or a T sound for past tense. So those are some things that are more for the delivery, but they are related to the language use, because we might get the impression that the grammar has mistakes. Most people, if you can get your topic development and language use under control, that's usually a 3. And then a 3 times for all of your answers, like so 3, 3, 3, 3, that would be a 23 on speaking. Let me see if I can get this next one. Yeah. So the 3, 3, 3, 3, basically this 12 out of 16, or this average of those points, 3.0, because they're all 3, that gets to a 23. If you can get a 4, that now brings your average up to 3.25. That's a 24. Where a lot of people are struggling is to get between that 24 up to the 26. The 26 is once you're getting 2 of your answers to be a 4 out of 4, that's where magic starts to happen. And the trickier thing is like, well, what exactly is going into that? So let me go back here briefly. So that delivery part here, there are details in here about your pacing, your speech being clear for the pronunciation, the intonation patterns, that's where your voice kind of goes up, gets a bit louder on some key words, key concepts in what you're saying. The listener doesn't have to make an effort. That is something that can affect that score. If I'm listening and I don't understand, or there's a heavy influence from your native language, and the speech patterns of your native language, that can affect that 3 and the 4. So a little bit more specifically, I'll go in here. So the speaking rate, how fast are you speaking? Now, some languages that I often listen to from students, I mean, I'm not exactly singling out specific native languages, but things I hear, let's say Hindi, Urdu, Arabic, Spanish, there tends to be a lot of information being spoken very fast, and the syllables tend to be equal length syllables. So I hear this constant steady da, 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 da. And English tends not to have that pattern. It doesn't have just da, 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 da. Like if I read what's on the screen right here and I try to do that, I would have something like speaking rate is a measure of how many words you speak per minute. Stronger speakers tend to speak faster, but be careful if you speak too fast. It may be difficult for others to understand you. That's not English for me. That's not English. Those words, they might be in English, but that's not a normal English speaking pattern. I would be highlighting a couple of words. Even if I'm speaking fast, I am trying to control my pacing. So like speaking rate, so that's a key word, is a measure of how many words you speak per minute. So I'm also cutting up the sentence into little chunks and groups. And a lot of people don't do that on purpose, but they need to. And that can affect this pacing between not just all the words you're able to say in 45 seconds, 60 seconds, but a little bit of, slow down a little bit on the important words, speed up on the less important words. So, and there is this concept of connected speech where you have the ends of words like is a, there's a consonant here, the Z or the S or the Z sound, and then the those should be linking together. That allows people to speak a little bit faster. The pronunciation will change on some of these function words, grammatical words that are less important in the message, we'll change that pronunciation, and that will allow us to speak faster and reduce some of these pauses in between the words. So that the speech patterns are very different in English compared to other languages. And if you continue to use the speech patterns from your native language, that can be a problem that can affect your English. So I do suggest to a lot of people do shadow techniques where you listen to a YouTube video, try to pause for 5 seconds, and then copy what you just heard from that native speaker or from those patterns. If you are listening to an advanced learner of English, it doesn't have to be a native speaker, but there are patterns that are being used by native speakers. So that how fast you can speak. This chart that I'm looking at is from an automated speech report that's available on the ETS website. They have a thing called the speaking series. Students have done that. I think that test is about $25 or so. And then some of them sent me their results. And then these percentiles are showing that the students are, how their performance compares to other students. So stronger speakers are able to go a little faster, but there is some overlap here where you see the blue and the green here between good and green. So we do want to get your speech rate a little bit faster. I have looked at the transcripts from the ETS tests, and where you're listening to these voice actors in the listening section, or the voice actors in the speaking section, the writing section, integrated, and then looking at how much time is the audio file, and in the transcript, how many words were they able to say in that amount of time. And I was noticing these speakers averaging about 140, 150 words per minute. And those are professional voice actors. They are not improvising those conversations and lectures. They are reading a script. So when you are doing your answer, you are improvising. So that's not quite the same speaking rate. You do slow down a little bit when you're improvising and thinking about what you're going to say. But even despite those things that are going to slow you down, try to get more information. I mean, not more information, more words into your 45, 60 seconds there. Okay. So that's the first thing, is how fast can you speak? Slower speakers that are interrupting themselves, hesitating. So that's also important to be careful about your stress, your anxiety. The sustained speech. So as I mentioned, being stressed out and being affected with your performance. In that case, people will usually interrupt what they're saying with the or or some of the anxiety can lead to repeating some words or using some interrupting words like yeah, the and or like. Be careful with like. That can. I'm from California. I use like way too much, but yeah, controlling your breathing a little bit, trying to get your sentences or parts of the sentences into 5-6 second chunks before you pause. There are strategic places. I mean, that's the next thing on here. Is this? Well, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. But these pause frequency. Where are we pausing? So this relates a little bit to what I just skipped over about the thought chunking or grouping the words and knowing where is it a good place to breathe or pause. So let me just go back briefly there. So these disfluencies, there are people who do podcasts and speak publicly, and they try to control how do they sound. And it is something that you can work on. These are things that affect even native speakers who have a lot of ums and uhs. This part here about thought chunking, these are a couple of videos that you can find on those. I usually recommend the first one from Jill Diamond, and you can kind of see on the screenshot, there's an exercise that she does on the screen, and she is highlighting some of these important words that a speaker should bring out with their voice, and then putting like a slash where there's a pause. So it does take a change of speaking pattern to figure out where can I pause, not just because I ran out of air, but so content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, those end up being important words where we want to highlight them with our voice, and then we can pause slightly after those key content words. So pausing after a noun is a good place where it's safe to pause. And that noun can be part of a group where you've got the article in the noun. So the professor, you could use an article and adjective in a noun, the university professor, the botany professor, pause. That could be the subject of your sentence. You could use a preposition with that. So in the biology professor's lecture, in the biology lecture. So you have a preposition there, and putting those together can create your sentence, part of your sentence. So knowing where to pause is something important. The content and function, as I mentioned here, these like noun, verb, adjective, adverbs, those are those key words that are usually answering these who, what, when, where, or the adverbs of manner, how did this happen, when did it happen, where did it happen, for the place and the time. Those are things that we are analyzing. English is a grammatical language in the sense that the listener and the speaker are trying to express this grammatical knowledge to the listener. We don't have case endings like you might have in Russian, Greek, or German, or some other languages that have cases. So what English does have is syntax and using the voice to highlight those words for the listener. So like, what's the subject? Who did this thing? What did they do? So the actions. What is their object? So that's usually a noun, an object. How did they do that? The means of it, or an adverb like ly ending. When did they do it? Where did they do it? What was the purpose of doing that? So we're trying to get our sentences into those order, into that order if we can, and make it easier for the listener to process that information. But if you're taking different patterns from your native language, that can definitely affect how you're presenting this information in English. So we do want to be conscious of how we're kind of changing that a little bit. Repetitions. Usually what I've told people, this is a little bit more related to the stress and anxiety, but it can be quite literally part of repeating the same word multiple times throughout your answer. So you do want to have a little bit of variety with your vocabulary. So the word forms, like going from a noun, an adjective, an adverb, that can help avoid some repetitions. But I usually tell people, like, just calm down a little bit, breathe, if some of these repetitions are through stress or this pressure to speak, and so be careful with the repetitions. That's for this particular student was able to avoid that, and so they got a higher rating through this speech rater. Body language, even though you're not being recorded on video, I think it does help to consider your body language. How are you sitting in front of the computer? Are you sitting up with good posture? Are you like pulling your shoulders back? Are you able to project your voice like to the other side of the room? Is your voice kind of coming out clearly and confidently? So your body language and your breathing can help create this sense of confidence. Whereas like if I do this opposite, and like I like pull myself down, roll my shoulders down, kind of pointing my voice towards the floor, talking to my feet, I do start to feel less confident. And I feel like I'm whispering, or that my answer is a secret and I don't want to share this with anybody. That can have an effect on my performance as well. So not a lot of people do talk about this, but sometimes your body language can affect how you sound, because your thoughts, your body posture, and your words, what's coming out of your mouth, they do tend to align with themselves, your thoughts, your body, and your voice. So do try to create a good posture that looks confident, and your mind usually will adapt to that body posture, and then the words coming out of your mouth will probably sound more confident. And you might surprise yourself of like, oh, I've never spoken that way before. I've never heard myself speak that way before. And then, as the speaker says in his TED Talk, kind of fake it till you make it, or act confident even though you don't feel confident, and it might actually, it might change. Actually. Okay. Now, getting into little things on the intonation patterns, once we have those key content words, we said like nouns, verbs, adjectives. What exactly are we doing? And previously I said some of these languages where it's just da, 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 da. One of those languages, or a couple of those languages, they are called syllable timed languages, and where the syllables are all equal length. English doesn't like that. English prefers long and short syllables. We don't usually do, like if I read what's on the screen, vowels is a measure of how you pronounce vowels compared with the pronunciation of a native speaker. Specifically, it is a measure of vowel length. Stronger speakers tend to pronounce English vowels more like a native speaker. That's not English. That is, at least for me, that's not English. What changes it is these stressed syllables being a little bit longer. So vowels is a measure of how you pronounce vowels compared with the pronunciation of a native speaker. Specifically, it is a measure of vowel length. Stronger speakers tend to pronounce English vowels more like a native speaker. Now, I'm exaggerating there, but the feature that you can hear me doing there is lengthening these vowels and doing it on purpose. A lot of people I work with, I say, please do this. They'll do it for 2 seconds, and then they'll forget about doing it in the second half of their answer. And I have to say, no, we need to consciously do this throughout the entire answer. And just realize you're giving them less than 4 minutes of audio material. You've got 45 seconds and then 60, 60, 60. You don't have to do this for the rest of your life. Just do it for 4 or 5 minutes for this performance that you have on the test. Some people might be a little self-conscious and say like, well, I don't speak that way normally. But if you want to get this 26, if you want to get those higher answers, consider these vowel lengths, what you're doing there, with the vowel length, and definitely record yourself, listen to a recording if you can, exaggerate this as much as you can to work on that, because when people are not doing it, it's very noticeable. And sometimes understanding somebody correctly can be on the intonation pattern, the vowel lengthening. Those two features are very important there in English. And then this last detail here is the variety. The rhythm is in there. There's two more here. Rhythm is those intonation patterns. So these louder, longer, slower, higher pitch, clear pronunciation. The opposites here, the function, softer, shorter, faster, a lower pitch. So you do have this kind of big contrast between how do we make a content word stand out. So we give it more space, more volume, the pitch, there's that vowel is a bit lengthened, and these function words kind of disappear into background. And we make that big contrast between those two types of words with our rhythm. So there's like long, short, or short, long on the syllables. And what was it? The vocabulary range as well. So using word forms, using a variety of forms, not always using easy words that a young, like 10-year-old child would say, or having a mix of academic words and common words in there. Okay. So that, yeah, let me just recap this, I think. The speaking rate, how fast are you speaking? Sustained speech, can you go for about 5-6 seconds before you interrupt yourself, before you pause? Where are you pausing? So that's part of the thought chunking, grouping your words, what you want to say. Repetitions, try not to say the exact same word multiple times. Do use some vocabulary range on there. If it's related to stress or anxiety, be careful with that. The vowel length and the rhythm, these intonation patterns, make sure that you are consciously making content words longer on those stress syllables. Avoid using equal length syllables. As I showed you here, that does not sound natural for English. It may sound natural in other languages where the syllables are all the same length. But if you're not doing that, that will be noticeable in the English here. And yeah, this is vocabulary depth. Okay. Feel free to put questions you have so far here. And in this second half, I'd like to go through some actual questions with you and practice them, and then give you a little bit of feedback for this. So far, so good. What have you learned so far? Is this new information? Have you seen a lot of this before? What's something you've learned so far? Now, I have seen a lot of people make some good progress going through this information. Usually, this is what I share in the first session with students. And these links that I put in the slides, and they say, okay, take a look at these, go through some of these videos, or notice some of these exercises. record yourself, see if you can make some of these changes. That can take a couple days. It can be hard to do all of this in 1 week, but you have to start somewhere, and to start little by little, start somewhere where you can see a little bit of progress. And some of it could just be, where am I pausing? Or am I doing vowel lengthening? Have I paid attention to that before? So sometimes we're not even paying attention to these details and realizing that that is something that native speakers are doing, and that is something that's affecting how you're being evaluated. So yeah, the comment here about confidence, even when you don't understand what you're talking about. If you've ever seen a TV show, Big Bang Theory, there's an actor, Jim Parsons, who plays the Sheldon character. He's not a scientist. He's just an actor. However, he does such a convincing job of his performance that a lot of fans will go up to him and ask him questions, physics questions and things that his character talks about, but he has to remind them, I'm sorry, I'm just an actor. I have no idea what I'm saying. I have no idea what that character is talking about. But the other actress, I think it's Mia, I'm going to mispronounce her name, Mia Belikum, the love interest of Sheldon. She actually is a scientist in training. I think she does have a doctorate, and she knows what her character is actually talking about. It's just funny to see how an actor can be really good at acting but have no idea what they're actually talking about. So it is possible to be confident and not know what you're talking about. Okay. So let me get this off the screen here, and I'll also get this link here to those slides, so you can have access to that from today. And that way you can also click on the links that are in those slides. Okay, so so let me get. Getting up this next information we can work with for this next hour. Okay. Okay, I'd like you to try out, there are these two recording apps that you can use online. One is called Vocaroo, another one is called SpeakPipe. There are more options as well for recording yourself. I've seen some students use Otter. I think you have to sign up for an account for that. What else? Those are two, Vocaroo and SpeakPipe. So you can record yourself. You might want to test your microphone or your webcam audio, and then just try that for a few seconds. And we're going to go through a little bit on a set of these four questions, and I'll put some notes that we can work with as well, and just try to see like how is your performance on here. Now, I did mention with the topic development, language use, and delivery, I'm not so concerned today about your content. I do want to hear some things on your delivery. So these things where I talk about how fast you're speaking, how long are you speaking, like those longer phrases and filling up the 45 seconds, filling up the 60 seconds. Where are you pausing? How are you showing this emphasis on those keywords, those content words, connected speech between the words so you can speak a little faster, this vowel lengthening, so when it's a key important word. So I'll be happy to listen to some recordings here. And then if you're okay with me playing this out loud for everybody to listen to, please put that in the comment here, or if you've already sent me a message on Facebook or Instagram, I can check over there. But I'm going to get a couple set of questions here from one of these TPO websites, the TOEFL Practice Online, and I'll get the audio here as well. But just to show you how these two recording tools work, so I can do start recording. This has access to my webcam or my microphone. It gives me the timer for like 45 seconds, or I mean, at least up to 5 minutes here. Then I can click stop. I do see that my voice is being detected with these little wave forms. Then I can go here and listen to this. This has access to, so that plays my audio file, and then you can click get a link. And so I don't need my name, that's not necessary. And then this get a link, this is what you could paste in the chat box. If you want this for your own usage, you could also click on this open in a new window. And then from there, you could click download, and you can keep that audio file for your own records. The Vocaroo, very similar. You can click on this red microphone button, as so you can be speaking for 45 seconds, 60 seconds. And then when that's finished, you can click stop. You can play to double check that your audio is working. As soon as that starts, yeah, it seems to be cut out a little. There seems to be an audio issue there, maybe because I'm recording on Zoom. And then from here, save and share. And then here's a link, and I can also download that for my own records. This TPO site, this is a Chinese one that I can get the link here for you in the chat box. And I would like to participate. Where can I record? Do I unmute? You can record on this website I mentioned, the Vocaroo or the SpeakPipe, and then you can put the link there. Right now we're going to go through like a set of these recordings, and then you can share those, and then then I'll take like questions towards the end, like questions about what we've talked about today and other questions you have. For right now, I'd like to practice and give a little bit of feedback so I can hear some of these examples of what we've talked about here. Okay, so you don't have to unmute on Zoom. On Zoom, you can stay muted, and you can record yourself on the Vocaroo or SpeakPipe. Okay, but we'll kind of walk through this together. So here is one set of questions from test 54. I have those in these tabs here, and I will put some notes that we can work with on the screen so we can kind of brainstorm together. You can brainstorm in the chat box as well. Okay. So this first question is whether we agree or kind of about childhood being the best time in a person's life. What is your opinion on that? So this is a little bit of a mix on the way they've presented this, but basically, is childhood the best time in a person's life, or do you disagree? Do you think there's another time? And in terms of brainstorming, what I've seen with some students, I'll put some notes here. So if you agree, you say childhood is the best time, what are some potential reasons that could be about that? Be like play all the time. So there's like no stress for work, studies, bills. Another thing for childhood could be all this this free time. That's similar with the play all the time, but a lot of free time. And by contrast, adults are busy and they have less free time, or so the afternoons, children can play, and that's one way they could spend their free time. They can go on vacation for a month, 2 months in between at the end of the school year in summer. Another thing that's great about childhood, lots of toys, gifts, presents. That's maybe less frequent as we become adults, but this time for play, lots of free time, no responsibilities, a lot of people giving, I don't know, gifts and things. Maybe also there's lots of candy, ice cream, just sugar, all this kind of food that children end up eating that maybe adults have to be careful because of their weight or their health. So children are like, yeah, not worried about the health or the weight that's involved with eating that kind of a food. Okay. Are there other ideas that you can add to this brainstorming? Or do you disagree? You can also disagree here and say like, no, I don't want to be a child again. Actually, there was kind of rules to follow. You're not quite as free to do everything you want. You still have parents who tell you what to do, the schools that tell you what to do. You can't do everything. You can't drive. What else? There's certain things that you just can't do. Or maybe you don't have, like you don't have your own money and freedom to spend it how you want. So children have to ask parents for gifts or ask for things that they want, or they have to do chores to get the money, or have to wait for birthdays to get money as a gift. So they don't have a job, so they don't have all that freedom that comes with making their own money or something like that. Or maybe as an adult, adults are able to choose how they spend their time, who they spend it with, and maybe children are always with their families or just a few friends for a limited amount of time. So, I mean, there's no wrong or right way to answer this question, but just which one would you choose? So I'm going to stop speaking here for a little bit. Why don't you go ahead and with Vocaroo or SpeakPipe or on Facebook Messenger if you want, record yourself for 45 seconds. I can put you can use the recording tool, and it should have a timer there as well. Okay, let's see if there are any recordings that anybody shared, but okay. Otherwise, I'll go through one here. I'll put a timer, or actually, I'll go over to Boca Room myself. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, there is a speak pipe. So I received that in a direct message. Can you also let me know if you're okay with me sharing that, or if you want me to listen to it on my own? But I'll put a new thing here. Okay. I personally think that childhood is the best time in a person's life for a few reasons. First of all, children have a lot of free time after school when they can play with their friends and have a good time. By contrast, a lot of adults are busy, have a lot of responsibilities. They don't have as much free time. So those are a few reasons why the free time does make childhood a great time. Also, children get a lot of gifts, presents, and toys that they can enjoy. Adults are usually a little more stressed out and don't have as much opportunity to buy things. So okay, I got a little bit cut off there. I wanted to wrap up and say, like, so that's why I think childhood is the best time, but I did have two reasons in there. So I'll go ahead and put, this is what I did here today. We're kind of going through and explaining. And let me listen to this recording that I received. Well, oh, okay. Well, if I play that right now, let me turn off the audio. I'm going to put these notes in the chat box. Just 1 second here. And I'm going to turn off the screen so I can listen to this recording. Okay, just 1 second. So I'm just listening to a recording of something. Okay, so I've listened about 20 seconds so far. The content sounds good. The explanations, the sentences sound good. Just a little bit more exaggeration there on the vowel lengthening. So let me just mention that to this person. So yeah, I would say that. Okay. Got a second message here. Let me see. I'm going to start listening to the other one that I received as well. Okay. Yeah. So let me go into the chat box here again. But this other one that I heard, it has some of this good variety there, the vowel lengthening and those things. So and so yeah, those are two examples, but I am not playing that out for all of you right now. But okay. So yeah, there's a couple private messages that I'm receiving here. Oh, actually, okay, yeah, it's fine if I play that for all of you. Okay, that would be helpful. I can comment a little bit more directly on what I'm noticing. So let me go back here and turn this on.
I believe that childhood is the best time of person's life for two reasons. First, there's no responsibility during childhood.
Yeah, so the speed is pretty good here, and I can hear connected speech. Vowel lengthening could come a little bit more, but the speed is good. The grammar seems okay, and there's the connected speech, and I can hear some of these keywords being highlighted.
For example, when I was a child, I was playing all the time.
There's thought chunking. So for example, when I was a child, so that's getting those sentences into those groups and pausing at the end of those keywords, like as a child.
And I was not worrying about that I have to work or
A little bit of a hesitation in there, but I was not worrying about, or I didn't worry about, so maybe on the past simple. Here, I think a hesitation might be in like, what is your content itself that you're going to say next, but not necessarily a hesitation through the grammar so much. It's a little bit of what am I going to say here.
that I have to work or I have to do some studying, like when I grow up. Second reason.
So the second reason is, or instead of just second reason, having just a little bit of a transition there, like an article. And you do have some examples, some details in here so far for that first idea. And you're about halfway through your answer, about 21 seconds. So that's not bad.
During childhood is the one.
So if you have during childhood is, there's a little bit of a grammar problem there. So either during childhood, children can spend a lot of time with their family, or childhood is when people are with their family. So just that little thing there with the during can affect that sentence. So let me go back.
During childhood is the one is surrounded with the family members.
So careful with that sentence. I would try to fix that structure or the syntax there. So like childhood is when children spend a lot of time with their family.
For instance, when I grow up, I travel to another country and I live by myself.
Okay, yeah, I still hear that thought chunking, those groups of words. That's good. There seems to be a jump here between a contrast of when I grew up, I'm no longer surrounded by family. So maybe a detail here, the benefit of being around with the family. You can still use that example of like being away from the family there. I just maybe transition to that.
So my childhood was the only time when I was surrounded with my family, and
I would probably say that first. Like, so childhood is the only time in my life when I was surrounded by my family all the time. We had family meals and vacations together. But when I grew up, I was away from my family members, relatives. So that is less enjoyable, or I have less contact, something like that.
and beloved people. These are the reasons why I think childhood is the best time of person's life.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that ending, that wrapping it up sounds good as well. So I think in the message here, you mentioned already getting a 24. So there are some positive features that I've already detected in here. I would say just keep exaggerating those a little bit more in there. Okay. Let me take that off the screen and let me check back on the chat messages.
Hey, Army.
Mute for a second here. Okay. So let's look at the second question, the campus announcement one, and keep moving forward here. And yeah. Okay, so this one is about community service requirement. So in my notes, I want to get what's the title of that. I wouldn't ignore this information. That can be helpful. And I would notice here that there is a student name, this kind of sincerely. So I recognize that this is a proposal, probably in the school newspaper. This is not a university change of policy. So be careful in some of your template phrases when people are saying, the announcement is. This announcement is actually more a student suggesting something. This hasn't yet become a policy. So just be careful with some of those words you end up using to describe what you're reading. And when is this requirement? So this is before graduation. And we're looking at why. What are the benefits? What are the advantages of this? And we have this, it's a good idea because, and then I want to get this in my details for the notes. It would strengthen relationship between our school and the town. That's the first idea. And then this where it says additionally, this is the second idea, that it would, because of it, students would discover a love of service. And that might inspire them for this lifetime of volunteer work. Okay. So those are the two reasons. It's going to strengthen this relationship and create a love of service. Okay, those are the two things I want to see in my notes. Then the next thing is that this is going to now be eliminated. You're not going to see that from the screen anymore. So I'll just go ahead and take that off the screen now. It's probably been more than 45 or 6 seconds. And I'm going to play this audio file. So listen to this and take some notes.
Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
So, what'd you think of that letter?
Well, it might sound like a good idea, but I really don't think it's going to have any of the benefits that the letter writer says it will.
So you don't agree with it?
Nope. If anything, it's going to hurt our relationship with our town. I mean, forcing students to volunteer, it's going to make them see it as a chore, a nuisance. And so they're not going to put their hearts into it, which is going to make the university look bad.
You're saying that students doing volunteer work in town will be unenthusiastic and...
Right. It'll be obvious they don't want to be there. That's sure not going to make things better, in terms of how we're regarded by people in the local community.
But maybe students would learn to like it.
I really doubt it. The whole idea that this is going to encourage students to do more volunteering in the future is just ridiculous. A lot of students are likely to come away from the experience with negative feelings about it.
Yeah, especially if their studies suffer from being forced to spend time away from them.
All the students I know already complain about not having enough time as it is. So this extra work is going to be a bad experience. Hardly inspiration for them to pursue more volunteer work after they graduate.
Okay, so we've got our notes here, and then the question that comes up on the screen next, down here, is the man expresses his opinion of the student's proposal in a letter. So as I mentioned here, it's a student proposal. What's the man's opinion? And explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. Now, just in case there was any problems with the audio, I'm going to go through and just read the script here that we just listened to. Let me take this text off the screen. So, first of all, the woman is asking what the man thinks, but he says, I don't think it's going to have the benefits. So
but
he
I really don't think it's going to have.
Yes, I mean, activate the audio. And that instead of strengthening the relationship, this is going to hurt the relationship. So that's one thing you can anticipate sometimes when you're reading the text is what could be the opposite if they disagree, or if they do agree, what are they going to say with similar words? So what he ends up saying is hurt the relationship, forcing, obligating students. This is going to be a chore, a nuisance. So a chore is something like children have to do at home, like to clean the room or wash the dishes. A nuisance is something that's bothering, annoying, something you have to do, but you don't want to do it. This expression about not put their hearts into it, that's there. And it's also going to make the university look bad. So those are, at least very quickly, we get this hurt the relationship. It's going to be a chore or nuisance. They're not going to put their hearts in it. And it's also going to affect the university's reputation. That's going to make the university look bad. It could be tricky to get all of those 3 or 4 ideas down in your notes, but if you can get those, that would be great. And overall, what the woman says, yeah, they'll be unenthusiastic. Unenthusiastic is the opposite here. They're not going to be excited about this. They're just going to be like, I have to do this thing. I don't want to do it. So already that's that first idea about the having to do this. And that's not going to strengthen the relationship, that's going to hurt it. Then, again, these other words of saying this, like if they're unenthusiastic, they don't want to be there. And that's not going to make things better in terms of the relationship or the people in the community. And then this idea that they will be inspired for a lifetime volunteer and service, that's not going to be true. They're going to have a negative feeling from that experience. And also their studies could suffer. So instead of spending time on studies, they're now spending time on a community service requirement. And students already complain about not having enough time for their studies. So overall, that's going to create a bad experience. They're going to have negative feelings. It's taking time away from their studies, and they're not going to want to pursue volunteer work after they graduate. So as you can notice here, they give you the same idea in probably like 2, 3 different ways to phrase it, hoping that you at least walk away with one of those that you can further explain in your answer. Okay, so let me turn off something here on my screen and give you something here that you could work with. And this is still loading for some reason. Okay. So what we could do here is say something. Let me just see if I can mute everybody as you're coming in. Okay. So we could say on here both the announcement, in this case, it's a proposal. So both the announcement, both the proposal and the conversation are about requiring community service before graduation. What is this going to do? This will help strengthen relationship between the university and the town, and it will encourage students to have a love of community service. However, the man in the conversation disagrees because, first of all, he doesn't think that this will actually help strengthen the relationship. It will actually hurt it. The students will feel forced. So, I mean, he explains that the students will feel forced, obligated. They won't be enthusiastic about being there. And this could create a bad image for the university. Another reason why he disapproves is that he doesn't think this will encourage them to become volunteers. They'll have negative feelings after a bad experience. This will also take time away from their studies. If anything, they will not enjoy this and not want to volunteer ever again. So for those two reasons, the man disagrees with the proposal. So these are a couple phrases. I did change them as I was speaking right now, but just in terms of bullet points of how could I organize myself on it. So if you want, you can go through in the Vocaroo. I'll put that link there again for Vocaroo for those of you who just joined. Or SpeakPipe. Okay. And I received another direct message. Let me just see if I can. So you can record yourself for about 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. Let's see if there's more. Okay. Um, okay, so for this one, I don't see any more voice messages coming in right now. Oh, okay, yeah, there's a message here. Let me play this for all of you. Okay, let me get that. So there's a recording I can review.
To me, I definitely believe that childhood is the best time in my life for the following reasons. First, being a child means no responsibilities. For example, I don't need to prepare food or the house or even go to work. I just need to focus on simple tasks as a child.
Yeah, you hear this vowel lengthening on this, the tasks as a child. That's good. The speaking rate is fast. That's good. You're able to speak in those groups. Your ideas make sense. You're developing them. Okay.
Not only this, but also it is the best.
Okay, that's a template phrase. I forget who does that. But I hear a lot of people use that, like not only this, but also I just would go straight to the word also, or secondly, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, there's alternative phrases on those transition words, but I think I hear that one a lot. Yeah.
Time to have fun and enjoy time. For example, I remember when I was a child, I had 3 hours playing time per day in addition to the ability to go to swimming and gymnastics classes.
So the ability to go, I think just I could. I think ability might be more like I can swim, or yeah, I wouldn't use this phrase like ability for just to say like I could go to the classes, but so I think the point you're making there is like you can do a lot of take advantage of your free time in the afternoon.
In addition to the ability to go to swimming and gymnastics classes, which is so fun. That's why I believe this way.
Okay, that's why I believe this way. I think I would just expand slightly there to say like that's why I think childhood is the best time. Yeah, this is why I believe this way. I think that's too. You could change that slightly on there for that template phrase. There are some good features here. I think you can just a little bit on that phrasing there, on that last one about that ability to making that sound a little more natural. I do hear the vowel lengthening. I do hear those keywords being highlighted. That's good. Yeah, I'd be curious to know like what your previous scores were on there. Okay. And let's move on here. I don't see any other messages for the campus one. Let me get to another one here for the third question, the lecture one. So this is called systems thinking. So this would be on the screen for about 50 seconds. And we've got the concept there, systems thinking. And this is ways to solve problems for organizations, businesses. And this, the key word there, systems thinking again. And what this involves is this long-term approach or big picture. And there's a large system that could contribute to that problem. And this also can create a complex solution. It might take a long time, but it is effective. And this could create a long-term benefit. So it'd be a long-term solution, but it would have long-term benefits there. Okay. So that would then come off of the screen. Let me take that off the screen. And then we would listen to this conversation. And I'm also going to hide the text at the bottom there. But that's a bit predictable though. Here.
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a business class.
For example, I used to work for a corporation that was having trouble with workers being absent a lot. To help address this problem, they hired a consultant who began by interviewing a lot of the workers and getting to know more about them. She also researched other aspects of the company, such as the types of eating facilities and health services it offered. And what the consultant discovered was that many of the employees were missing work, not for an obvious simple reason, like, say, lack of motivation, but because of health problems that were the result of, or at least made worse by, a combination of factors, such as poor eating habits and lack of exercise. The consultant concluded that since the company didn't offer exercise opportunities or healthy meals, that this indirectly contributed to the workers' poor health. The consultant proposed building a gym within a company office building for employees to use to exercise, and also to offer a more nutritious menu in the cafeteria, which the company did, but it took a while. And after a year or so, after the company had time to construct a gym and revise its cafeteria menu, attendance began to improve, and continued to improve until it was no longer a problem.
Okay, so then what comes up next is, we're not going to see that text again, but we'll get this question that says, explain how the example discussed by the professor illustrates a system thinking approach to problem solving. So what we got from the professor here, I'm going to go through the text, is, now I'm going to take that thing off because it's there. So he used to work for a company or corporation. They hired a consultant, and the problem was that the workers were absent.
For example, I used to work for a corporation.
So the consultant made interviews with the workers,
who began by interviewing.
Sorry, I'm gonna stop clicking that. So there were interviews, and they found out that there was health problems and this motivation and poor eating habits and lack of exercise. So then that led to a recommendation that there was no exercise opportunities and no healthy meals. So they proposed, so they suggested or recommended, build a gym so they can exercise and change the menu options at the cafeteria. And it took a while. That's a reference to the fact that it was a long-term solution. It was a complex solution, but it was a long-term. It took a while to implement. It took about a year. So then they constructed the gym, revised the menu, and then this idea that attendance improved. So we don't want to just say that they built the gym and changed the menu. We do need to talk about how the attendance, that was the problem that was being addressed. So the attendance improved, and it continued to improve. And that's that part about that long-term benefit for the company, that this attendance was good for the workers, it was good for the company, and this was no longer a problem. Okay. So now another thing that we could look at here, where's my template for 3? We could say something along the lines of both the text and the lecture are about systems thinking, which is defined as a big picture approach to solving complex problems for companies and finding long-term solutions that create long-term benefits. The professor gives an example of when he worked at a company that had a problem with employee attendance. They hired a consultant. Next, the consultant conducted interviews and found out that they had problems with their health. They were not getting exercise and not eating well because the company did not offer a gym or have healthy menu options. So the consultant recommended building a gym and changing the menu, which the company did, though it took a while to do that. However, the solution did improve attendance, and it was no longer a problem since the workers were healthier and eating better. Yeah. those are a few things that I could put into like an answer like that with this. Let me go check on the messages. I've also got some messages over on like Facebook, I think. Okay, there's a question here. Okay, yeah, I see a message on Messenger. And also, do we need to paraphrase the definition from the text when we speak? I think it is a good idea to briefly spend maybe 10 seconds. What's the concept? What are one of these key characteristics there? If you're able to get those from the notes, and then spend about 45 seconds talking about the professor's example. But I think it gives a more complete answer if you're able to paraphrase the definition. Also, my approach is like, why do they give you the text if they don't want you to talk about it? So I think it's useful to have some of that information being combined in your answer, like 10, 15 seconds about the text, and then 45 seconds about what the professor says. Okay. But yeah, time management can be a question there. So trying to keep your sentences short. And as I showed you here on the screen, about 8 sentences, kind of just to go through that. Let me play an audio file. I think this might be from one of the previous answers, but let me go through. I'll leave this as anonymous. Here. Okay.
Personally, I prefer my life when I was a child. I feel this way for 2 reasons. First, because I don't have responsibilities and also problems when I was a kid. I just sleep, eat, and play.
Okay. There's a little bit of a tense, like verb tense thing of when I'm a child versus like when I was a child. So I think I might either talk about children in present tense in general, or make this personal about yourself and say like, when I was a child and I could do this, this, this. There's a little bit of the voice kind of coming up, which is, I think it's called like up talk or I can't go backwards, but can I?
Play and also problems when I was a kid. I just sleep, eat, and play.
So the voice kind of coming up of kid, play. Try to at the end of the sentence kind of bring that down. So when I was a kid and I could play. So having the voice come down there at those phrases.
I don't have to worry about anything. Now that I'm an adult, I have to worry about working, paying my bills, other things like I have to limit my money and I cannot buy whatever I want.
Okay, so here we have a risk of going into too many details for the list. Try to just stop after like 2 or 3 things. So we can say, yeah, 2 of these items and then stop. Okay. And because otherwise we might get stuck in that list.
Is that when I was a kid, I used to live close to my family.
Oh,
I
okay.
had to worry about my food, what to eat, because it's already ready.
Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 ideas there. I might kind of stick to 2 and then move on to the next idea, the next sentence there.
During lunch, breakfast, and dinner, I can do.
So yeah, their voice kind of coming up a little bit on those lists, but then trying to get to those end of the list with the voice dropping.
Everything I want without worrying for anything. That's why I prefer my life when I was a kid than
now. Okay. There's a little bit of like a rushing, trying to like go through a lot of information, but trying to get, sorry, I'm gonna have a student coming up soon. Let me just send a message there. Time flies when I'm teaching. Just 1 second here. Okay, yeah, so there was the 3rd one here. Yeah, it doesn't look like we got a chance to go through for the 4th one. And are there any more messages? So using the phase is important. I'm not sure if I understand that question. And I can't see the definition as it is in the reading text. I think it would be better to paraphrase it and reduce it just a few keywords, not all the sentences, because we just have limited time, right? Because the time management. Okay. And I see 25 is on this previous answer. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're coming up to the end of these 2 hours, and I'm starting to see a few more messages and things. But for the thank you so much for attending here. I hope you've gotten a lot out of going through like what's going into the 26, what factors are in there, the speaking rate, the pausing, repeating yourself, what to do with intonation patterns, vowel lengthening features as well. And as we saw here, we went through just a few questions. We got through like question 1, 2, and 3. Kind of ran out of time here for the fourth. The fourth one, I kind of used a similar template to what I had for the third one. Let me see if I can get this text. I would use something similar for question number 3 and 4. You can kind of adapt that. And I'll get the other one from the question 2. And I think I have one for the first one. This is one possible thing for question number 1. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've had a lot of insights from what I usually share with students for the process. Now, if you would like to work with me, I do have individual lessons, group lessons. I do have also a kind of an independent a 2-week program that through email, and then you can kind of contact me, send me recordings, and I can give you feedback along with a little more advice that I've talked about here in some strategies. You can actually kind of go through this process step by step. So yeah, feel free to contact me. As I've mentioned at the start of this presentation, some of where you can contact me. So let me just put that in the chat box. So through Facebook, and by email. But yeah, please stay in touch if you have further questions here, and I hope you have gotten a lot out of this, and I will have a replay that you can have access to from today's session, and with the links that we shared here. So, but yeah, all the best with your studies, your practice, to get you to at least that 26. Hopefully this has more clarity, so you know what to work on, what to focus on. Yeah, thank you so much. Learned a lot from this event today. Happy to hear that. Yeah, and thank you so much. Yeah, and great. So have a great day, and we'll be in touch.